Hi, welcome to Prime Recap. 15 years after being abandoned to die by his own father, a bodyguard expert in martial arts undertakes superhuman training to seek his revenge. Today we will recap the story of the 2016 movie, Iron Protector. In Hong Kong, Wu Lin, a martial arts master, stands in the middle of the street doing a split while dozens of people gather around him to see how long the man can hold that position. Upon seeing the sweat dripping down Wu's face, a kid offers him ice cream, but when the guy approaches to eat, the kid turns away. Suddenly, several men come running up and knock the boy down. These guys were chasing Mr. Li and intended to capture him, but Wu decides to intervene and attacks the attackers. The fighter takes down all the bad guys at once and, even empty-handed, manages to strike all of them. With precise punches and powerful kicks, Wu takes out a dozen armed guys. When his savior is leaving, Li offers him money as a form of thanks, but the man refuses and goes on his way. Minutes later, 3 vehicles approach and surround Wu. Just then, a guy in a suit gets out of one of the cars and walks towards the fighter while smoking a cigar. As they approach, Wu realizes that this is his foster brother, whom he has not seen for many years. They embrace and Zhang invites him to his home. During dinner, he asks about the great master who trained them. Then Wu pulls a pot of ashes from his belongings and informs him that the old man has died. Upon learning about the death of his mentor, Zhang is distraught and begins to cry desperately. Later, while watching his brother train, he realizes that Wu Li is wearing the iron boots and remembers the day he was thrown out of his master's house for stealing those boots. This arouses great anger and envy in his heart. Yang's main goal was to learn the iron kick kung fu, but the old man decided to expel him. Since then, the young man had to learn to fend for himself on the streets. Now he works for Mr. Fu, a cruel man capable of doing anything to achieve his goals. This guy is so crazy that he keeps a caged tiger in his own house, which he feeds with the flesh of his enemies and traitors. The next day, Zhang decides to take Wu to see his private security company. His bodyguards undergo intense training and are very talented. While they are following the training, one of Yang's men appears and reveals that Mr. Li, one of the richest guys in Hong Kong, is there to hire a personal bodyguard. Zhang presents him with his best fighters, but none of them are able to arouse the millionaire's interest. Suddenly, the man hears a barking sound and spots Wu. The kung fu fighter was playing with a dog that lives in a cage in that place. In that instant, Li says that he wants to hire that guy. Later, in the car, on the way to his mansion, the old man reveals that he needs to stop at a nightclub before going home. Fei-Fei, his daughter, has a habit of going to nightclubs and usually gets into trouble. The woman was already completely drunk when 2 men start hitting on her. Fei-Fei then breaks the bottle she was holding over the head of one of them, and the guys try to kidnap her. However, her father shows up just in time and manages to save his daughter from being taken away by those perverts. Before they leave, Wu decides to teach them a lesson and, with a single blow, manages to knock them out. When Mr. Li arrives home, he leaves his daughter asleep and asks his driver to take him to the police station. When Fei-Fei wakes up the next morning, she is confronted by Wu Lin. The man was doing a split in the kitchen and gives the young woman a fright. Immediately, the young woman calls her father, but is unable to get in touch with him. So she decides to pay her bodyguard to go away, because she usually gets everything she wants through money. However, the man refuses the proposal, and Fei-Fei grabs a gun to threaten him. Minutes later, she realizes that no matter what she does, Wu will not leave. Since he can't drive, the girl has to drive him everywhere he goes. When they are about to enter the mall, Fei-Fei spots a woman being harassed and decides to intervene. She slaps the jerk in the face and the man begins to chase her. Wu Lin watches the situation and does absolutely nothing, despite the girl's pleas for help. The bodyguard says he will only protect her when the young woman apologizes for threatening him earlier. When she finally asks for forgiveness for what she has done, Wu grabs the harasser by the shirt and threatens to throw him several meters high if he does not apologize for what he has done. That night, the kung fu master is awakened by the trap he himself has set in the mansion's garden. The place was being broken into, and when the bandits pull up on one of the wires surrounding the house, the bell moves and the sound allows Wu to be aware of what is happening. However, realizing they have been discovered, the invaders decide to retreat. The next day, during lunch, the bodyguard immobilizes the waitress who was serving the wine and orders Fei-Fei to drop the glass. However, the owner of the restaurant shows up and takes a sip of the drink, proving that there is nothing wrong. Furious, the young woman gets up from the table and goes into the bathroom to cry. Seconds later, Wu appears and carries her out, even against her will. When they realizes that the girl is being taken against her will, 3 men appear to confront him, and Fei-Fei takes the opportunity to sneak away. What she didn't expect is that she would be kidnapped soon after and when her bodyguard goes to rescue her. the guys try to stop him. After taking down those undercover criminals, Wu runs after the van and jumps on the roof of the vehicle. The driver manages to knock him down with his maneuvers, but the man does not give up his mission. After chasing them all over the city, he cuts him off and gets in front of the van. The driver tries to run him over, but Wu jumps with his feet on the windshield and breaks into the vehicle. After freeing the girl from the kidnappers, he picks up Fei-Fei and runs away. Later, the young woman asks how the man knew that the waitress was an imposter, and Wu reveals that Kung Fu has the ability to develop the user's intuition. Despite being in disguise, the criminals could not hide their expressions and body language. Before going to sleep, the young woman takes a portrait of her family, in which her father's head is cut off, and shows how much she misses her mother, who died when she was very young. Wu, on the other hand, takes advantage of the evening to remember the teachings of his master. The man was found dumped in the forest when he was still very young. He was badly injured, but his master took care of him and, before he died, taught him everything he knew about Kung Fu, including the 108 powerful iron kicks. By this time, Zhang was already the old man's apprentice. It was at this time that they met and became brothers. Days later, he receives an invitation from Zhang to visit the new base of his bodyguard company. As they talk, the man says that, starting the next day, Wu will no longer have to protect Li's daughter. However, the fighter refuses to follow these orders, but Zhang claims that success requires sacrifices and challenges Wu to a duel. The man does not intend to fight his brother, so he decides just to defend himself against his attacks. However, Zhang is blinded by hatred and provokes Wu until he decides to strike back. Fei-Fei's bodyguard is more trained than his brother and his techniques are more powerful. Therefore, although Zhang is an excellent fighter, he ends up taking several blows and is defeated. Furious and consumed by envy, the man says that from that day on he no longer considers Wu to be his brother. In the car, next to Fei-Fei, Wu reflects on Yang's words and remembers that, before abandoning him, his father also said that success requires sacrifices. The girl and her bodyguard are fleeing to a camp on the beach, where they intend to stay until Mr. Li finds them. Now that Wu knows that Fei-Fei's life is in danger, he needs to hide her until he knows what the next step will be. As they walk along the beach, the woman asks why Wu wears iron boots and he explains that they are part of his training. Each of those boots weighs about 25 kilos, and he has worn them all the time for 8 years. After 10 years, Wu will be able to take them off and his training will have been completed. Since they had nothing to spend their time with, Fei-Fei asks her bodyguard to teach her some kung fu moves, and she decides to teach him how to drive. After being abandoned by his master, Zhang had to live on the streets and was constantly fighting. During a fight against Fu's men, the boy managed to get the old man's attention by being an excellent fighter and defeated all his bodyguards. From that moment on, Zhang became Fu's ally and was treated by him like a son. Now, Zhang and his men do the old man's dirty work and, that day, take Mr. Li to him. 15 years ago, Fu caused the death of Li's wife, and since then he has known that the man would betray him. Li gathered a lot of incriminating information and evidence against Fu, but was captured before he could even turn these documents over to the police. Since Li is ill and has little time to live, Fu does not intend to do anything directly against him. His revenge is even more perverse, as the old man plans to kill Fei-Fei in front of her father. Before going to the police station, Mr. Li handed Wu an envelope and asked that if he did not return, the man should give those documents to his daughter. Days later, Zhang is told that Wu and Fei-Fei's location has been discovered. However, before going after them, he decides to train his men to become capable of defeating his brother. After hatching a detailed plan, they head for the camp where Fei-Fei is hiding, but Wu notices the invasion and flees with the girl. The criminals go after them in the forest, but Wu manages to defeat them. However, Fei-Fei ends up being taken, and her bodyguard runs after them to try to save her. The man enters an abandoned warehouse, but ends up falling into a trap and his ankle is handcuffed. At that moment, one of Yang's bodyguards attacks him, but Wu manages to knock him out using his own chain. Then another criminal appears and attacks Wu, cutting off a piece of his hair. As the fighter eliminates his enemies, new opponents appear, and the man must dodge their attacks. During the fight, a giant guy appears and grabs Wu by the neck, then brutally throws him to the ground. The giant intends to stomp him, but the fighter manages to dodge and hits a double kick to his chest. New criminals arrive on the scene and the battle continues. Now Wu must fight several enemies at the same time and ends up being defeated. The giant pulls the shackle that is attached to one of his legs and drags the man along the floor. Two other guys join in to chain Wu's other leg and hold him upside down while they beat the bodyguard with all they might. Even with his movements limited due to the handcuffs, Wu manages to get up and goes on the attack. He lands several punches on his opponents, but is ultimately knocked down, as he watches Fei-Fei being lifted by a rope. Wu insists on continuing the fight and must face enemies armed with knives and swords. Even though he is wounded, he manages to dodge all the attacks, but the giant throws him on the hood of a car as the driver drives through a wall, crushing his body. Fainted, Wu is dragged into the forest, where Zhang was waiting for him. Tied up, Fei-Fei watches her friend being beaten with the shovels that were used to dig his grave. When his brother is unable to fight, Zhang approaches and punches him in the chest, knocking him into the hole. After being betrayed by his own brother, Wu is buried alive. That night, Fu uses a gun to kill his tiger, proving once again to himself and his men that he has no love or attachment to anything at all. Contrary to his fate, Wu manages to free himself from his grave and returns to the camp. Once there, he decides to watch the recording that Mr. Li left for his daughter. In the video, the man tells how he has stage 4 liver cancer. Li knows that he does not have long to live, but before he dies he wants to bring the person responsible for his wife's death to justice. However, he does not want his daughter to be involved in this, so he has enrolled her in a school in France so that she can live a quiet life away from all that chaos. After hearing the message, Wu realizes that Mr. Li has also been captured by Zhang and his men. Therefore, he decides to get rid of his iron boots in order to be able to face those bandits and save Fei-Fei and his father. Before proceeding with his mission, Wu takes a shower and cuts his hair. The next morning, he goes to Yang's company headquarters and his appearance is unrecognizable. The man is wearing a suit and fancy shoes to face the final battle. He walks through the scene until he is confronted by dozens of security guards. All the guys attack Wu at the same time, but now that he is 50 pounds lighter, the man can move much more easily and takes down several of them with a single kick. Wu uses the 108 styles of the iron kick to eliminate his opponents and gets rid of anyone around him. Realizing that they cannot beat him empty-handed, the security guards use shields to protect themselves, but not even those steel plates are able to withstand the iron kick's attack. While fighting those men, Wu enters the tiger's old cage and that place becomes his arena. Wu does not use punches to fight the guys, as only his legs can handle the enemies. Not even an army containing dozens of soldiers is able to stop the great master of martial arts. After taking down all his opponents, Wu finally walks to Fu's room, where a man was waiting for him holding a sword. However, moments later, the security guard is defeated and Wu uses his fingerprint to open the door and enter the room. Inside, he finds Yang's best fighters, those who defeated him and buried him alive. Despite his sad experience in the previous fight, Wu is not intimidated and in a few seconds he knocks down the woman who is about to attack him with a sword. Now it is the giant's turn, and he goes after him overcome by hatred after seeing his partner being defeated. However, Wu hits several kicks in a row to his knee and then delivers a blow to his throat, making the enemy unable to continue the fight. This time he is attacked by the axe guy, who tries to hit him with 2 weapons at the same time. As the man runs towards him, Wu manages to stop him with a kick and uses the force of his leg to throw his enemy away. After defeating those fighters, the man continues on his way in search of Zhang. Entering the next room, he finds Fei-Fei and her father caged. At this time, his suspicions are confirmed and Wu discovers that Mr. Fu is none other than his father, who tried to kill him when Wu was still a teenager. Seeing the mark on his son's forearm, the old man can hardly believe that the boy he threw off the cliff 15 years ago is still alive. Fu did this after realizing that his son was an unusual boy. One day, when he was attacked by a wolf, the boy managed to make the animal retreat with just a look. Fu's wise advisor said that at that time, Wu's energy flowed so strongly that, to balance it, everyone around him became weak. After the boy's birth, Fu's wife died and nothing else worked out in his life. Therefore, he believed that to achieve the success he sought, he needed to get rid of his son. So one day, the man took the boy to the edge of a cliff and, after stating that success requires sacrifices, threw the boy dozens of meters over the cliff. Seeing Wu alive right in front of him again, the man smiles and says that the boy is very persistent. He is amazed to learn that Wu is still alive and says that if he were not so cruel, Wu would not have become so strong. So Wu tells him that he trained his skills in the hope that that moment would come. He has not gone a single day without the urge to take revenge on his father. To his surprise, the world is very small, and this moment came much sooner than he imagined. Realizing that his life is at stake, Fu decides to test his son's luck again and asks if he is fast enough to dodge a bullet. However, Zhang uses his metal gloves to stop the bullet. When Fu points him out as being a traitor, Zhang states that he accepted the old man's help to open his bodyguard company because he wanted for the spirit of the Iron Kick to remain alive. Instead, however, he ended up becoming the leader of that evil man's personal squadron. The boy tells how he followed Fu's orders for years to repay him for his help, but his debt was already paid when the old man made him bury his own brother alive. Therefore, Zhang challenges Wu to one last duel and asks him to show him the secrets of the iron kick. The fight begins and Wu manages to dodge the first blow. He then uses his kicks to block his brother's attacks and manages to knock him down. Meanwhile, Fu watches the battle with a smile on his face, hoping that the two brothers will end up killing each other. Shortly after, Zhang lands a punch to Wu's jaw and Wu returns the attack by kicking his brother in the back of the head. Zhang continues and lands a second punch, however. Now he ends up leaving with some broken ribs after receiving Wu's blows. After breaking the bones in his brother's knee, Wu wins the battle, and Zhang laments his master's partiality, for if he had continued training, he could also have learned the secrets of the iron kick. Seeing that weak man, Fu orders his personal security guard to shoot him. Before he dies, Zhang asks his brother to continue living in order to make sure the iron kick remains alive. After witnessing his son's great strength, Fu invites him to work with him, but Wu rushes to attack the security guard, who lands a shot in the left part of his chest. At that moment, Wu falls to the ground, but when the man approaches, he attacks him, causing his death. Unlike most people, Wu's heart was born inclined to the right side of his chest. Therefore, that shot was not able to kill him. Wu then walks to his father, and when he finally has a chance to get his revenge, he decides not to kill him because his worst nightmare is to become just like him. Weeks later, Fei-Fei takes flowers to the grave of her father, who has died of cancer, and prepares to make her journey to France. On the other hand, Wu goes to the cliff, where he was thrown off by his father 15 years ago, and scatters his master's ashes there. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.